Hey guys, so we finally made it. We're on lesson 5, distance formula. And so let's go over what it actually means, distance formula. Distance and length are the same thing. It's just when you're looking at a line on a coordinate plane, you can't just count anymore. Unless, like if your line is horizontal or vertical, like this one, then you can count. So let's find the length. We're going back to lesson 1.3, and let's find the line segment length, okay? So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Whoops. So my length of AB is equal to 6. Okay? It's not on your notes. I'm just refreshing your memory. That you know how to count. In that unit, however, we did look at lines on a coordinate plane, right? And you could count if it was on a number line. But you can't count if it's on a coordinate plane and it's got a slope greater than 0. So we looked at that last unit with midpoint, right? Well, why not? Because with midpoint you could count. You could count up and count over, and you could find your x value and your y value for your midpoint. Well, that's the kicker, is midpoint is based on x and y value, right? You have to have two, it's one point, midpoint. So you have an x value and a y value. Distance is you're describing a whole bunch of points. Can't have just one point. So now we have to use a new formula. Before we jump into that formula, however, we're going to say this, that distance and length are the same thing. If I ask you for the distance of a line, I'm also asking you for the length, or a line segment, pardon me. The distance of a line segment and the length of a line segment are the same thing. So when I'm doing this, I'm just going to say that the length of AB, the distance between A and B, written as AB, and note you don't put the little line segment on the top, now because you're talking about length. I know mathematicians are so annoying. It's also called the length of AB, and that is the distance, okay? So if I ask you to find the distance of DF, right, here's D, and here's F. This one's easy. It's on a horizontal number line, so I can just count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Distance is 7. That's easy. We've done that millions of times. We got that, Miss Barnett. Why are you wasting our time? Now let's get ready. So that was lesson 1, a review of lesson 1.3. Now let's look back at 1.4, which was midpoint. So I'm looking at my midpoint formula, or my distance formula. Midpoint, remember I said there's a formula, but we're going to use Desmos, and we're going to just plug it in, right? Make sure you're using the Virginia Standards of Learning Desmos, the icon on your computer. Don't just type Desmos into your search engine, okay? So you're going to look at this. I'm going to look at my points, and I'm going to do this 2 ways. I'm actually going to show you using the formula just because I have the time, and I'm also going to do it using Desmos. So let's do it with the formula first, okay? So I'm going to type this out. So what I'm going to do here is label my points. So I've got x1 and y1. I call them x1 and y1 because it's my first x and my first y. And then down here I've got x2. Oh, whoops, I put that in the wrong spot though. Hold on. The 2 goes on the bottom. It's not squared. It's a subscript, not a superscript. So it's x2 and y2. I know the handwriting looks horrible. And then what I have to do is substitute these points in. So what I'm saying is, because C is the first point I see, my x1 is -3. So it's going to go into the -3, the x1 spot right here. So -3 would go in for x1. 2 would go in for y1, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video, write it out, and turn the video back on so I don't waste your time while you watch me painfully write with a cursor. Okay, so I wrote it out the way I labeled it. So x1 is -3, y1 is 2, x2 is 4, y2 is -1. So I've written all my substitution out, and then I'm going to plug each number in where it says to in the formula. So where I had x2, I put a 4. Where I had x1, I put a -3. So remember, it's minus already, so it's a minus minus. Then where I had at y2, I put a -1 because that's what it says. And then for y1, I put a 2. And then I'm going to do the math. So I'm going to go to Desmos to do that. I'm not going to do all that math in my head. That's crazy talk. So I'm going to put my square root symbol in, and I'm going to type this in exactly the way that I had it on my paper. Okay, so I'm going to type this in exactly the way that I had it on my paper. So the square root of 4, and a negative is a positive, so I'm going to turn that into a positive, squared plus -1 minus 2 squared. And I end up with 7.61577777. So I can do all that substitution, or I can do this. Okay, so that's my answer when I used my formula and I did my substitution, and that's fine. If that's what you want to do, okay. It's just there's a lot of space for error with that. What you can do instead is click on the keyboard, go to Functions, go to Miscellaneous, and look, there's distance. And all I have to do here is put my points in. So I'm going to put -3, 2 in for my first point because that's what they gave me, and for -1 for my second point. Oh my God, Ms. Barnett, that's so much easier. Why did you make us do the distance formula? Well, we're not going to make you do the distance formula. You can just use the program that's in Desmos, okay? It's more about the concept, not the substitution, not the algebra. All right, so both ways I got the same answer. I got 7.615. Now if I round this to the hundredths place, what? Oops, I didn't write that. Okay, this is the hundredths place. So I'm going to round. So remember, if it's 5 or higher, the number to the left goes up. So is it going to be 7.61 or 7.62? Well, 5 is bigger. 5 and higher means that the number goes up. So I have 7.62, and that's my answer. Okay. So now I'm going to do this again just using Desmos, so it's not quite as confusing. So we're going to do the 0.74 and the .-14. So I'm going to go back to Desmos. I'm going to close all this out. And you can choose the method you want. I think the Desmos way is better. I go to Functions, I click on Distance, I enter my points. This time I've got 7.4, and this time I've got -1, -4. And that's my answer, 11.313. So let's make sure that you guys understand what exactly it is that's happening. So I've got 7.4, I'm going to label my point, and I've got -1, -4, and I'm going to label my point. And you can see here that I've got, whoops, I'm going to label my point, and you can see here I have these 2 points. I can't just count. I can't count straight across on these grids. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's not, it's not quite right? You can't just go this way. If I do, first off, I'm not going to hit my second point if I try and draw a straight line going through all the grid points. That's not how these points work. That's not how this line works. So you have to use the formula, and it's based on the Pythagorean theorem actually, and triangle ratio. Like, don't even go there. Don't bother, okay? But I'm not going to prove it to you today. If you want me to prove it to you, I can, again, off the video. But you can tell you can't just count. So you need to use the formula. So you can either use the formula and put the substitution in and do all that work, or you can rely on Desmos. So let's go back to our notes. So my answer is 11.313, but I'm going to round it to the hundredths place. So this is the hundredths place. It's the second spot after the decimal, and there's a 3 next to it. Well, 3 is below 5, so it's not going to change. So my answer is 11.31. Okay. This last one I want you to do on your own. Find the distance between these 2 points. So you're going to plug those points into Desmos, and you're going to find the distance. So ask either Ms. Cintron or myself or Ms. Mohammed to check your answer, okay, when you get to this point. Thanks, and good luck. You have practice on this on Schoology, by the way. So when you're done with the notes, go to the Schoology practice.